What is up, guys? Welcome to a new video. Today we're going to be looking at something I think is really interesting. Basically, which pro player Vayne build is actually the best. Doublelift has been using this kind of Ghostblade build now for a little while, but two Korean professional players, Imp and Pray, well, Imp actually plays in China now, but still, they build her completely differently. We're going to look at each of the builds in depth, so exactly what they build, what orders, masteries, runes, and then compare them to see why each is good and which might be better for us plebs in our games. If you like this kind of idea, then throw the video a like, dislike it if you didn't, and let me know which build or player you think is the best Vayne. So before we start, just to say, I picked people relatively known for their Vayne who have specific builds. Imp even plays her in competitive play, but Gosu, for example, deliberately isn't here because he basically builds whatever he feels like. He doesn't stick to one build. Anyway, let's go to Doublelift first. So if you want to play Vayne just like he does, then this is everything you need to know. Runes, we're going to be running AD reds, armor yellows, attack speed quints. Basically, those three are always the same. For blues, in a hard matchup, he runs full flat magic resist, and for an easier matchup, scaling magic resist, sometimes even 6 scaling cooldown reduction and 3 scaling magic resist. Masteries are going to be 18-12, but he does actually swap sometimes as well. Further seems to be the default, like medium to easy lanes, he takes this. In harder matchups, Warlords is going to be the backup, so against like hard lanes or kill lanes, he actually takes this. Although I can't say it for sure, he also seems to take this against very high damage teams. If a LeBlanc is on the enemy team, he normally takes Warlords, which would make sense. He doesn't really need Further to kill these low health mages. Skill order, he's going to max his Q, then W. Q is really good with AD and Armor Pen of Ghostblade. Also kind of allows for better trades early, being a bit more aggressive and repositioning more. So for the item build, Ghostblade is going to be first. Component wise, we get the Dirk into Warhammer after, and then the Berserker Greaves for the boots, unless we're kind of like snowboarding very hard, and then he leaves them till after the full second item. Phantom Dancer is almost always going to be that second item. It's actually just an attack speed item, so recently has built a few static shivs and also a rapid fire cannon, but normally always Phantom Dancer. Out of all the games that I looked at, he built those two first every single time, but then it's going to vary a little bit. So sometimes it's Mercurial Scimitar, which is good against crowd control, that kind of outplay potential, you know, magic damage. For example, like he got this in a game versus LeBlanc, Irelia, Lysandra. Those three are good for the Mercurial, and so he built that third. Infinity Edge is another option. It's kind of the pure damage option. So PD is going to give us a crit strike already that we need to make Infinity Edge good, and Infinity Edge just massively increases our damage output. For example, he built this in games when he was against a Tank Fizz, a Swain, like a Tank Echo as well. He doesn't really need QSS against those things, so he's going to get more damage to kill them. Finally then, Bloodthirster means bigger crits, more life still to round out the build, and also more of our Mortiers as well. Magic resist and good against heavy burst damage, life steal after we proc the shield as well. There's kind of two versions really of the build, I guess. This is what they commonly look like anyway. So the most common one is Ghostblade, Phantom Dancer, Mercurial, and Infinity Edge. The kind of pure damage version, I guess he got in a few games when he was very fed, was Ghostblade, Phantom Dancer, Infinity Edge, and Bloodthirster. So let's go into the build Imp uses, and Pray pretty much uses the same as this as well, with a kind of small variation. By the way, if you aren't sure who these guys actually are, Imp plays for LGG now in China, but he used to play a lot in Korea. He's actually from Korea, and Pray plays for Rox Tigers in Korea. Especially Imp, though, is known for his Vayne and has played her a ton in professional games. So for runes, let me just say, by the way, Korean ADs have very super specific runes, so you could just use normal ones, but Imp is going to use AD reds, armor yellows, attack speed quints. Pretty standard for those. But in his recent games, he's been using 4 attack speed blues, 3 flat magic resist, and 2 mana regen. Kind of random, but this is just what Korean AD carries do. For masteries, Imp is a real man, to be honest. He goes 18-12, and I've checked a ton of his games, and it seems like he always takes Further, even in competitive play, no matter who he is against. For skill order, even though it's a very heavy attack speed build, which normally means we max our W, he maxes Q and then W. Again, this is just better for the lane phase and lets you do a little bit more, plus lets you kite better and abuse the stealth with your ultimate more. So for the actual build, Blade of the Rune King is going to be first. Almost always Vamp Scepter, then into Cutlass, then Recurve Bow, and the boots one, just normal brown boots, are going to be thrown somewhere in there before we finish our blade. The interesting thing is that in a very hard matchup, he'll actually get a refillable potion as well. Just the first one with 2 charges, but he'll get the Vamp Scepter first back, and if that's not enough, they'll then sometimes get the refillable on the next base. Then we get a Phantom Dancer. More attack speed means more percentage damage with our W, the damage reduction, kind of duelist Vayne, like the 1v1 god here. Those almost always seem to be the first two. Sometimes Phantom Dancer is subbed out for a rapid fire cannon though. That seems to be the other one. Static Shiv isn't really used very often, but sometimes we do see the rapid fire. So when we're rounding out our build, we have two kind of options. So we have the Imp Special. Now this is what I call the Imp Special because I've never seen anyone else really do this. Like even in competitive play, Imp will do this. He gets a Maw and Mercurial together. It's kind of about survival more than anything else and prolonged fires. Normally we get one or the other to kind of deal with magic resist, but we don't normally get both. Now saying that, he's going to stay alive so long with his W and the bulk damage is going to add up, and that's kind of how he wins the fights. So So after those 4, Blade, Phantom Dancer, Mortimer, Mortius, and Mercurial, he finishes it off with an Infinity Edge after. But the other build is kind of a pure damage build. Infinity Edge third, then Sterix or more, and then Last Whisper usually to round it off. So that is Imp's build. Let's move on to Pray's variation. It's very similar to Imp in a lot of ways. The build does the same thing, but there are a few tweaks in it. His runes are going to vary at least as well. The glyphs like the blues do. The most common variations he has are these two. So it's sometimes like 5 magic resist and then 4 attack speed, which is kind of the standard AD carry stuff anyway. The other one is going to be the Korean special, the 5 magic resist and 4 mana regen blues. For masteries as well, he basically always runs Warlords. It's going to be 18-12. It doesn't really matter about matchup though, it seems. I haven't found a game where he actually took further recently. Build is going to be Blade into Phantom Dancer the same, but then actually third sometimes he gets the rapid fire cannon for triple attack speed. Sometimes he gets the Mercurial or Quicksilver Sash against heavy crowd control, and then sometimes just the pure damage Infinity Edge. Normally he actually gets all 3 of those items, so that is his core build, but just in different orders. His skill order actually depends on the build he's going to go as well, which is quite interesting. So if it's like rapid fire cannon or Mercurial third, he tends to go 3 points into Q and then maxes his W. If he gets an Infinity Edge, so he goes that kind of heavy crit build, he gets 4 points into his Q and then he maxes his W afterwards. So we have our 2 builds, but now let's look at what each are better at, why you do either, I guess, in your games. So the good stuff about Doublelift's build is it bursts really hard for 6 seconds. It's kind of a duelist build really. To get optimal use out of Ghostblade, you want to use it every time it's up. That's going to mean you have to take a lot of small skirmishes, you have an extended lane phase, or you just 1v1 people a lot to actually use the cooldown. So the actual kind of pros of the build though, Q damage is higher, like your Q does a percentage of AD as bonus damage, the biggest benefit of AD and Armor Pen on this build with the Ghostblade. Your ultimate also gives more AD too, which helps, and you're kind of designed to fight more here and match like heavier burst champions, like your damage is done quicker. Phantom Dancer after that gives you some more sustained damage, extra dual potential, and kind of buffs your W damage as well. The whole point really is to do more damage early into the game. You keep up with other early game picks. Now you have a better lane phase, you're a bit more aggressive, it's easier to fight people in lane, and you kill people quicker with higher burst. For Imp and Pray's build, it's more of a team fight build. Sustained damage is much better, but the initial 6 seconds is going to be a little bit worse. It's still a very good duelist build though, because we have our Blade active and the PD damage reduction as well. It's slightly weaker in lane though, trades are a bit more difficult. It takes some more time to kill someone basically. Now arguably this might be a bit controversial, but it takes more skill to actually kill someone with this build because you have to kite longer, you have to dodge damage for longer and judge the correct time to go in better. You can't really just brute force a kill with 6 seconds of increased burst like you can with the Ghostblade, and Condemn is much more important here with this build. You need that stun time to add up some of your damage. Basically a longer fight is going to mean more can go wrong. They have more time to kill you, right? And you have to survive longer while kiting and doing damage for longer. The payoff is going to be bigger in the end though. This build will be more damage over a 10-second fight, but it's more of a straight line of damage. Ghostblade build is a big boost to start with and then less after the active is out. The sustain from Blade is going to help as well. You survive harder lanes much easier. You can heal through the pressure of poke and trade, so I guess actually you can take the Warlord's Bloodlust to kind of counter that, which sometimes Doublelift does do. In my opinion, I think you actually have to be a better Vayne player to make this build work. It has a higher damage output, but it's more difficult to use effectively. Now by the way, I'm not saying that Doublelift can't use this, because he actually can. He used to use it a lot. Ghostblade just kind of fits this season 6 meta a bit more and is slightly more reliable. It lets you do more early into the game, which he obviously favors. Now I really want to back up what I'm saying here with a few numbers so you know I'm not talking out of my ass basically, and there's some kind of like justification behind everything I've just said. If we put those all together, right, to actually like kind of less complicate that, I guess, the actual difference is going to be 35 more AD, 20 armor pen on the Ghostblade build, but you lose the percentage health damage on auto, the max percent health damage on the active, and 10% life steal. Now actually when we look at it like this, the percentage health damage doesn't make much difference early at all, so the AD and armor pen is a massive advantage early and Ghostblade looks better. But what about if we actually look at this after the active, like after the 6 seconds runs out? So it's 35 AD and 20 armor pen that you get more, but you lose now 40% attack speed, the percentage health damage, the percentage max health active, and the life steal. Now we see why I'm saying that it's much better in team fights. That 40% attack speed makes a massive difference, especially when all of those more attacks we get off have percentage damage on them as well. Basically it means that if we can survive and kite for 10 seconds in a fight, we're going to likely do a lot more damage with our Blade of the Ruined King build. But if the fight is decided before that, within those 6 seconds, then Ghostblade is going to be way more effective. To wrap this up, let me just go over what I think is actually best. Let's answer the question in the video. Both of these builds obviously work at the highest level, otherwise these players wouldn't be using them. But putting the 2 builds together, this is what I think. Doublelift's Ghostblade build is better against very low health carry teams, a burst lane that you want to win, or if you just want to have more impact early, which kind of naturally makes it very good at lower elo. Overall though, as far as damage output goes, versatility, and the ability to carry if you're an amazing Vayne player, I think Imp and Pray's build is better. It will do more damage if you can survive, if you can kite perfectly and position well, attack move properly, then then you will output more damage. It's just as simple as that. It's more difficult to play and have an impact, so both have good and bad sides, I guess. But when considering everything, if we can survive early, farm up, trade well in lane, and get to team fights where Vayne shines, the Blade build is going to do more. So let me know what you think of this in the comments. Share it if you enjoyed it, like, subscribe, but for now, let's go to the robots.